Oh, how's it going? So today I was going to do another video on Rudyard Kipling's poem "If." So I'm doing them line by line or two lines at a time. So this is the third video I've done of this, and it's called, or it says, "If you can wait, not be tired by waiting or being lied about, don't deal in lies." So I guess there are two lines, two thoughts, and there's actually two thoughts within those two thoughts. And so the first part is about waiting. So essentially, he's trying to encourage his son to be patient. And this waiting sort of involves, I would say, like two types of waiting. There's the more immediate waiting, like as in waiting in line at a grocery store or DMV, um, and you don't know when how long this is going to take. It could take 5 minutes. It could take half an hour. Take an hour. And you might have other things to do in the day, and so you basically have to find a way either to um, sit in line, just just deal with it, or uh, find a way to just occupy your mind so it doesn't seem as painful. And then there's a little bit, it's still in the immediate thing, is maybe waiting in terms of weeks. You might be waiting to hear an answer uh, about a job interview, or waiting for Christmas to come, right? When you're a kid, right? When as soon as Thanksgiving's over, it's Christmas season. Um, and it might be difficult for many people to children, but also adults, to be patient enough for Christmas to come. Um, or you might be waiting for spring or summer if it's been a particularly long winter and you need that change of season just to kind of turn the calendar over in your mind, so you can make a fresh start, something like that. So in this case, in these sort of more immediate cases, you might have to find a way to distract yourself. And distractions are nice, uh, especially if you're if it's painful. You might find that it might make you put you in a bad mood. But if you say, okay, I'm going to the DMV, it's going to be an hour, take a book, right? So it's not as painful. And so the thing is that distractions are nice, but you aren't really you're not really using your mind as much. So you're not focusing on why you're being delayed. And the distractions might take you away from the here and the now. If it's waiting without a time frame in mind, say for example you're waiting back for a job interview, you don't really know when you're going to hear back, if you're going to hear back. You might have to prod the hiring manager um, for an answer, or maybe the hiring manager will think, oh yeah, man, we should probably get on top of this. Um, but if you're waiting for days and days and days, you might find something more productive to do with your time. So like I say, at a DMV, you can bring a book. Sometimes it's a little bit of distraction because there's just so much going on. You have to kind of watch for your number to come up. Um, as far as waiting for a job, and like what I'm currently doing right now, so although I have been hired, I'm going through a background process. Now, it's a little bit easier to stomach the waiting because I've been through this before. So I have been through a background check that is done internationally because I have an international job record, that it takes a while. Because the whoever it is doing the background check might not know all the avenues to go down in the United Kingdom in order to check that you are indeed the person you said you are, that you did have the job you said you had, etc. So having gone through that in England, they didn't know exactly my life because I never really had a life in the UK. They didn't really know the channels to go through to find out who I was in the United States. So it took a little while. Eventually, it got through. It took about 2 or 3 weeks to get done. And it was I must say that right now I'm a little bit more patient because I've gone through it. So in the meantime, if you know the patience is there, but you still want to use something uh, productive with your time, because your time is a valuable resource. Right now, I'm doing classes online. I'm visiting my parents. I'm trying to make the most of the time before the job starts, because right then my daily routine, my weekly routine, it's all going to change, and I might not have time to do blog stuff or videos or just sit around and watch baseball all day. But I am doing other productive stuff while baseball is not being played. In the afternoon and the morning, I go visit mom. I do a little bit of blog stuff. I do some language stuff. I'm doing a programming class. I'm just trying to keep busy because I might not have all the time or the energy to do this later. So the thing is, like, when you know that you have to wait, you know that things are going to change. You just have to pursue, that you don't know when, right? It's going to happen. You just don't know when. You're sort of forced to be in the present, even if it's for an undetermined amount of time. In terms of longer term waiting, you might be thinking about years going by, and so typically with that, the two main things I would think about is either relationship or a career. So you might be in a job where you're not getting ahead. I've been there. I was in a job. I was doing very well at it, and I was getting all kinds of praise, but I was being stonewalled from for trying to progress my career. And you have to kind of just sit there and think, okay, these things don't happen overnight, but at some point I'm going to have to decide whether or not it's worth waiting. Not so much that I can wait, it's that if it's indefinite and it's not sure that something is going to happen, then you're going to have to think about, whether or not it's worth waiting, or if you're going to just have to cut bait. So if you're not a big hotshot in the office, you might, in the meantime, while you're waiting or you're in the process of deliberating whether to go or stay, you might find time to do pleasurable things or find ways to advance your career as far as skills are concerned. You don't have to you don't have to use your time at work purely to advance your career. You might be, let's say, able to do things outside of work, take a class or something. You also, I think, have to find time to do the pleasurable things in life. So I did notice when I was in England, um, a lot of old people doing traveling, which is nice, that they're still traveling, and some places are really accommodating to older people. But I was often pained because I saw them not able to do things that a younger person could do. And perhaps it's because they never got around to it, or they've done so much else that this is just the one thing that they haven't got around to till they were like 80. But I often hear people say, "Oh, I'd love to go to Paris," or something like that, but I'll have to wait until I'm retired. But the thing is, like, Paris is a great walking city. London is a great walking city. You just walk, and suddenly you're in 5 minutes later, you're in a new neighborhood. You can't really do that. I mean, it was hard enough to do it in your 30s, right? But to do it in your 60s, 70s, and 80s, you're going to get tired faster. And you're going to have a limited amount of time in that city, and so you have to kind of make the most of it. And when you're tired from walking maybe half an hour, 45 minutes, it just slows down the whole trip. So as far as I'm concerned, you take time that when you have these down times, just take time, go to Paris, and for a few days, or do something that you've always wanted to do. Um, and then from that point, you can just you don't have to sit around when you're 80 thinking, "Oh, I should have done this when I was younger." Um, so as far as waiting is concerned, like you have to understand that perhaps one day your day will come. You stand in the right line, you do all your paperwork, both figuratively and literally. Don't wait forever if you don't think anything's not going to come about it. On the other hand, I would say make the most of the time while you're waiting. And it not only occupies your mind, but you're being productive. And you feel like, oh, I didn't waste all afternoon waiting in line. You know, well, I also read a book, so or something along those lines. So the second part of this is being lied about. Don't deal in lies. So I guess that's two parts there. That being lied about. So one of the things, if you've been around the block at least once, you realize that people are liars. It seems to be a very human thing to do. I'm sure the animals have their own way of lying. Like cats lie, saying, "Oh, I haven't been fed. I haven't been fed," and my wife says, "I've been fed." They're lying. It happens. Um, and you meet people who are liars, and they're compulsive liars. And I think that compulsive liars are either delusional because they're trying to invent a world where they're the cool person, and they're really interesting, but it's all a myth, right? They're not actually that interesting. People are interesting, but they're not that interesting. um, and they can try to invent this world around them where they are interesting, and all these great things happen to them, or all these crazy things happen to them, but they construct a world where that they can't actually support. The thing is, it's kind of like a computer program where only the computer program only builds the things that's necessary, because there's a lot of computing power required to support all that. So like a liar wouldn't has to create a world where they're the hero of some kind of Herculean quest or something like that. And it's really hard to create a world that not only is complicated like the real world, um, seems real and realistic enough to fool somebody else. Um, people don't tend to stick around. These people don't tend to stick around very long, because eventually they get caught in their lies, because it's so hard to build a world where if you build so many lies, it just there's so many holes in the things they say. Um, Other liars who are not maybe compulsive liars, you could say that some people are just jealous, that good things happen to other people, and they might spread rumors about you, or just maybe you know something terrible about other people, because they can't stand to see other people they don't like, or they think that they don't deserve the things that they have. Don't like seeing those people get ahead. And if they see them as bad people, they think, well, bad things are supposed to happen to bad people, and so they kind of act like they're going to be an agent for bad uh, these bad circumstances that come about. So they basically they feel like justified in their lying, because nobody else is putting this person in place. And trust me, you know I know many people are not really religious, and I'm not really that religious. I'm not a church guy or anything like that. But you can't get away with anything. You might get away with it today. You might get away with it for 20 years. And in some cases, it never really, this specific thing never maybe comes to your door. But if you tell enough lies, they will come back to haunt you. 20 years from now, you will look like an absolute dick in front of everybody. You'll be seen as a liar. You just can't get away with anything. And if you believe in God, uh, you can't hide. There's no hiding, right? So, these liars, their day will come, and the thing is that you're wrong in trying to be an agent for God or the universe to put you in your place. Because essentially they're putting themselves in a bad spot by trying to be the sort of distributor of cosmic justice or something like that. And so, if you're being lied about, I think it's usually best to ignore it. People who fight lies being told about them, or rumors being told about them, usually try so hard that it makes it look true. There's a line in Hamlet, the lady doth test too much, methinks, is that perhaps fighting these accusations so much only draws more suspicion than the accusation. And it kind of makes everybody think, why are you? This is nonsense. Obviously, these claims are bullshit. But you're fighting it so hard. There's sort of I think psychologists would call it a reaction formation where you're overcompensating for this anxiety-inducing scenario of being lied about, that you end up drawing even more attention to yourself and than you would have just the original lies that most people don't really believe in rumors. They all know that either it's a case of Chinese whispers where things get pulled out of turn and they just take on a life of their own, or they're just outright not true. Um, so being lied about is it's not fun. It's an attack on your person, on your personal character. It's usually fighting it's even worse. And don't deal in lies. So don't be the person who lies about other people. You could say that lies are the enemy of truth. So they're trying to convince people that false things are true or true things are false, or they've even convinced themselves, or they've convinced you, and they're starting to warp your memory because let's say for example, the lies, that basically you're trying to tell the opposite of what's true, that a true thing is false, like I said, and a false thing is true. And they're trying to convince you of that when people who lie, or when you tell lies, they're trying to tell other people, trying to fool them. Or if you do or you don't succeed in that, you end up telling so many lies that you don't know what's true anymore because you start repeating them again and again and again, the point where you don't even remember what's true anymore, and that you've processed them into your memory as if it's true. So your memory, kind of like a truth machine, it turns things into truth. Um, and telling a lie might be harmless, telling tall tales, or things that don't matter. But when you make a habit of it, you basically make it a fundamental part of your personality, and it destroys trust in society. Here's a person who just tells things that aren't like it is, and basically they look at you askance, and let's say there are 100 people, and then you're in somebody's world. Well, 1% of them is a liar, and the more people do this, then essentially nothing anyone says is true, nothing is believable, and then it's like the boy who cried wolf. Eventually, bad things will come of this if you keep telling lies. Um, I would also say that there are, maybe deeper philosophical implications about this, the nature of truth. I'm not really an expert on this, but lying can save lives from time to time, but for the most part, it's a bad thing to do. So and I often find that telling the truth is easier because there's less of a story that you have to remember. You don't have to invent things. You don't have to invent then remember your invention. Um, when you tell a story, there's all kinds of like things on the periphery of the story that you'll have to remember, or you'll have to invent and then remember. Oh, what time it was, whether it was raining or not. Why were you in the situation? All of these things you have to invent. Um, and it's very taxing for you to have to invent these these lies, or these circumstances attendant to a bigger lie. So it's a whole system of lies. And this is part of the reason why I find nonfiction so much more interesting than fiction, is because fiction is true, right? So if you talk about like say Lord of the Rings, right? It's been a long time since I read the books. I didn't like the movies, but I'm not here to dump on that. But basically, you have to invent a whole world, circumstances for action to happen, right? There's a ring that turns people evil, and it's very powerful, and they have to get rid of it. So they have to invent this world, or Tolkien had to invent a world where circumstances of a war, the circumstances of the evil people, of the good people, and why things happen, and and all this, the plot to move along. Entertaining as that can be, nonfiction is actually a little bit more interesting because you didn't have to invent all the side stuff. You didn't have to on the periphery of the main thing, and so you don't have to you don't have to worry about human motivation or human characteristics because they're there. They exist. If humans are involved, everything about it is human, right? So motivations, the circumstances, all that is there, but you have to kind of invent that with fiction. And it's the same is true with lies. If you say, for example, that you know you're inventing a story to get away with murder, right? And just imagine two scenarios where there's a person who didn't murder somebody, a person who did murder somebody, and the person who did murder has to invent a world in which they didn't murder a person. Well, so there's a lot of they have to invent. Okay, the time, the weather, the circumstance, their alibi. They have to do this. They have to lie about the possible accusations of a motivation, etc. Now, on the other hand, uh, a an innocent person who's been accused of murder can say, "Well, I was here, there." These days, it's really easy to get an alibi because you have your phone everywhere with you, and you know, you're at work or there's cameras and stuff like that. You can easily establish an alibi, so you don't have to worry about the circumstances of the weather or the motivation, etc. That you might have a motive to murder somebody, but if you have a good alibi, you know, and the other sort of circumstantial evidence falls into line along with your alibi, then I think you're in the clear. So anyway, that's a little side note on this, is that don't deal in lies, because typically it's not only is it immoral, but just no good can come from it. And it just warps your personality to the point where you're just everything, you don't even know what's true anymore. And other people start to wonder whether anything is true anymore because everyone is a liar, So anyway, that's those two lines. I made a lot out of them, but I think that the great thing about these poems, as I said in other videos, that it makes you think. Not just a turn of a phrase. Turns of phrases may be poetic. This is something, life advice, that you could talk at hours about. And this is why this poem is such a great thing and so important. Anyway, I'll try to do another video soon. Fingers crossed about the job. So, so if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, it's getting a little boring waiting, but I'll listen to our man Kipling here. So I'll see you soon. Bye.